Good morning, it's Friday, July 11th. I'm meteorologist Andrew Pritchard taking a look at the Canadian Prairie weather story here for the next week. We've got storms moving east today across portions of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. More rain moves through early next week. A lot of the prairie with a better than 50% chance of picking up another inch or so of rain. Over the next 7 to 10 days, we got temperature fluctuations. A shot of cooler air moves in next week as well. Some areas seeing those high temperatures down in the middle teens Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. Looking at the last 10 days of precipitation, you kind of look up here in the top left. I know that this is a U.S. focused map, but it's a good one. And we go ahead and get, much of the prairie in there. So you can see some streaky precipitation. Again, it was, scattered, variable in nature is the word that I'm looking for here, with some areas that saw well over an inch. You can see some areas here in Saskatchewan with, 1.54, 1.31. We're talking about nearly an inch and a half here, maybe nearly 50 millimeters of rainfall. Then you got some areas here that were missed out. Some folks probably watching this video are going to yell at me and say they were dry over the last 7 days, and that's certainly probably true. So areas of thunderstorm activity brought locally heavy rainfall. A lot of folks got at least a few tenths of an inch here, and then some folks were missed out. And as we look at the satellite picture here Friday morning, you can see the big organized storm system. This is the pattern we've talked about the last couple of weeks, just keeping this window of opportunity open with storm systems rolling in from the Pacific over the top of our ridge, which continues to spin here. You can see kind of the broad clockwise flow over the western third of North America. So these systems come over, they ride over that ridge, and they kind of swing through the prairie, bringing scattered, sometimes widespread, sometimes hit or miss shower and thunderstorm activity. Each system's going to be a little bit different. Again, we're not talking about springtime systems with widespread heavy days-long rainfall events in most cases here, but as long as we just keep this window open where storm systems are rolling in, we're going to do a couple of things, and that's, again, keep precipitation coming every few days. So if you missed out today, if you missed out yesterday, you've got another chance here as we get into early next week. But also with a pattern like this with storm systems swinging through the prairies, we keep the more, prolonged excessive heat located over here across the western United States. And this is, even in these areas, not been the worst ridge that we've seen over the last 5 years or so. A little bit weaker, not quite as much extreme heat kind of packed underneath that to this point through the month of July. And that's meant a pretty favorable July outlook for much of the ag growing areas, from the Canadian Prairie down into the Corn Belt. We just haven't seen a lot of prolonged heat, and a lot of areas have seen these timely showers and storms move through. So a snapshot here Friday morning, scattered showers and storms moving through central and eastern portions of Saskatchewan. They'll make their way into Manitoba as we head through the next day or two. The system will exit. We'll get a little bit of a quieter lull over the weekend. Still can't rule out some spotty showers and storms, but the next system rolls in from the west as we get into early next week. You can see the temperature disparity here. Got that storm system right over Saskatchewan, warmer in the east as southerly flow draws that warm, humid air northward. And then on the backside, we tug that cooler air in, from the north. So really great illustration of the temperature pattern here as these storm systems move through. And again, this is exactly what keeps us kind of protected from those really, that runaway heat that we can sometimes see develop here across the prairies during the months of, late June into July and August. We can get into these patterns where the ridge kind of expands uncontrolled there. And then we get into these days where it's, a week straight of temperatures topping out in the mid 30s, highs 34, 35, 36. We just are not seeing that. We haven't seen it, and I don't see it over the next 2 weeks. Will it come late in the season? Can't rule that out, but right now, continue to see a pretty favorable outlook. So here's the forecast for precipitation. Again, this system rolls off to the east, and then here comes our next one Sunday into Monday. I'll time this out for you. We'll roll back here Friday morning. This is your Friday afternoon. This is now your Friday night. Again, I mentioned Saturday into Sunday. Can't rule out some very light showers kind of coming in with a small disturbance on the backside here. Pretty starved for moisture. It's as we get into Sunday and Monday that we'll see our next storm system here that will have a better chance of producing some more widespread rain with some embedded thunderstorms. This does not look like a big volatile severe weather day. Just looks like a nice chance to get some rain to swing through the prairies. Again, Sunday into Monday of next week. The NAM model through midday Monday, so this doesn't capture the entire progression of that storm system from west to east across the prairie, but you can see the type of moisture it's bringing. We're talking about some areas seeing 20 to 35 millimeters of rainfall here. Pretty good chance that a lot of us get close to that inch mark along and south of Highway 16. So here's the pattern, the jet stream pattern. This is that little ripple, the storm system right now across Saskatchewan, moving into Alberta. You see that little dip in the jet stream with the stronger jet stream winds associated with it. That is what a storm system looks like during the summer. So we got one of these here over the prairies. Down here where I live, Illinois, Iowa, we're going to be talking about thunderstorms, maybe some severe weather here associated with this little, you see the dip in the jet stream, very subtle, a little brighter area of color here showing those winds 30 to 40 knots in the upper levels. You know, not anything like what we're seeing across the Pacific, but this is what keeps that pattern going. So here's our Friday system today. Let me go ahead and animate this. We'll bring it back. This is Friday into Saturday. Here's our little lull, but I mentioned you still got some brighter winds here. This is not much of a dip in the jet stream, so this is more of a kind of a straighter short wave here. And so just, you know, moisture starved, not a real vigorous wave, so we just get scattered hit or miss showers. But then here comes the Sunday into Monday storm system right here. You see the stronger jet stream winds associated with that. We get more in the way of lift running over that kind of stalled frontal boundary right across the region. And so this is your Sunday into Monday. See the bigger kind of dip in the jet stream. Another little wave comes in on the backside, and we kind of start to lose the more well-defined stormy pattern as we get later into this run. This is late next week, Thursday, July 17th into Friday, July 18th. And this would be exactly the same thing. Another disturbance bringing scattered showers and thunderstorms into the area. And then we kind of cut it off here, July 20th into the 21st. You see it, you know, the models are going after a pretty big trough developing here across, the Hudson Bay, parts of northern Canada. And then we get this cutoff low across the Gulf of Alaska. Now, if this were to manifest 10 to 14 days from now, it could maybe bring a pause in the rain activity. This is a cooler pattern for us. So this is not necessarily, you know, running headlong into hot and dry. This would initially be northerly flow in the jet stream across the Canadian Prairie before potentially allowing some ridging to build in there. But before then, again, here's your probability of picking up an inch or more, nearly 30 millimeters of precipitation over the next 15 days. And again, a lot of real estate here along and south of Highway 16 with that yellow to orange shaded colors. That is 50 to 60, if not, you know, across portions of western Alberta, getting into that 80 to 90% probability of getting another inch of rain. So opportunities moving east today, another shot here early next week, maybe another shot as we get to the end of next week as well. Again, just kind of these systems come in every 3 to 4 days. And it's really seemed that every time we get to this end of the run where I'm like, well, we're looking a little hotter and drier, like I just showed you there, maybe July 25th or so, kind of see that be pulled back and the favorable pattern continues to run on. And we call that persistence forecasting, basically saying, hey, we've had the same pattern for 5-6 weeks and it continues to reload. Well, until I'm proven that this pattern is going to break down, this is the pattern. So right now, the pattern across the Canadian Prairie is periodic storm systems every 3 to 4 days, bringing measurable rainfall to a lot of people, knocking the temperatures back and keeping us from getting those really excessive, prolonged stretches of heat across the region. So don't get too hung up on the exact totals that you're seeing here. This takes us through Wednesday, July 16th. So this does not include that potential Thursday, Friday, July 17th, 18th system that could swing through. But, you know, just talking about through mid next week, a lot of this just comes Sunday to Monday. We're talking about areas along and south of Highway 16 getting into that 20 to 30 millimeter range, some higher totals possible in some areas. And then, you know, as we head further north, maybe missing out on this one, kind of flipping the roles of the last couple of weeks. We'll finish here with the precipitation forecast in a way that I can kind of run it out into the longer range and time some of these systems out for you. Here's your system today, Friday into Saturday. That gets out of here. Those scattered, very much miss, you know, more miss than hit shower potential here as we go through Saturday into Sunday, and then late Sunday into Monday. You see the green starting to expand, the rain expanding across portions of central and southern Alberta, reaching on in over to southern Saskatchewan, you know, late Sunday into Monday morning. And then the rain continues to move across the area, tapering off as we get into probably Tuesday. So a couple days here, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, chances for rain across the area, a little drier on the backside. The European does have that next chance for showers and storms maybe rolling through here as we get into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week, July 17th to 18th. Not a terribly impressive system. And as we talk about severe weather, this is the season across the prairie. And if we've got these storm systems kind of rolling in, certainly have to talk about the chance for at least isolated severe weather. But as I just play this loop, this is showing CAPE, convective available potential energy, basically a proxy for thunderstorm fuel. How much energy do we have here? And as we look at today, we're talking about, weak instability. And I would compare that to what I showed you, the Iowa, Illinois storm system today. We're talking about severe weather in this area where we got the red shaded values in the 3 to 4,000 range, 3,500 joules per kilogram. That is moderate to strongly unstable. And then you look across parts of Saskatchewan and Manitoba, we're talking about 500 to 1,500, and that is what we would call weakly unstable here, certainly supporting maybe a couple of isolated stronger storms producing some hail. If I run it out here to that Monday-Tuesday system, this is not one that's or Sunday-Monday. I apologize, my days are blending together here. But Sunday and Monday, when we get that rain across the region, this is not a storm system that's going to be talking about widespread severe weather. We just don't have the energy. We're just going to have another little low-pressure system running along that front, tapping into the moisture, giving us some showers and storms. And really, as I roll this out over the next 10 to 14 days, you see the brighter red colors just kind of flaring up here across the Corn Belt south of the 49th. And so that is the pattern, stormy, severe weather across the northern plains into the Midwest of the United States, and then periodically rainy and stormy across the prairie, but a much lower risk for severe weather, at least over the next 10 days. I'm not terribly concerned. There's going to be a strong storm or two producing a funnel cloud or some hail, certainly over the next 10 days, but I'm not seeing any big volatile watch out days at this time. Temperatures, we get a shot of cooler air early next week. See the warmth try to eventually build in very, very late in this run, but really, as you look at the next 10 days, it's hard to beat this across the prairies. We're talking about highs in the mid-20s in Calgary here for much of the next 10 days, except for Monday and Tuesday, with those highs 17 to 18 degrees. Some areas seeing those overnight lows down in the single digits. Edmonton, you'll be down to 7 degrees on Tuesday morning, 8 degrees for your Wednesday morning temperature, highs in the middle 20s. Saskatoon, very similar, 25 today, 27 for the high tomorrow, down to the 21 Monday and Tuesday, 8 and 9 degrees for your overnight lows. Regina, very similar here. You see the temperature fluctuations, again, knocking the heat back, keeping it subdued off to our south and west. 28 for the high on Sunday in Winnipeg. You'll be back up to around 28 by the time we get to the end of next week. But again, as we talk about this in 10-day increments or so across the Canadian prairie, hard to beat an outlook like this that keeps those chances for rain in the forecast with some regularity, and then keeps us from doing these week-long stretches of highs in the middle 30s like we can do sometimes. So I will leave it at that. Talk to you again next week. Have a wonderful weekend.